Welcome back, y'all. Let's talk about it. This is episode 5 of the Gilded Age. A lot happened in this episode. We start off with Gladys being bullied over there in England in that big old castle. We've got Peggy having men fighting for her down to the train station. George's money is funny. And Bertha is experiencing a fall from grace. And there's so much more. Let's talk about it. So this episode begins with Gladys in the carriage, and she's going to Sidmouth Castle for the first time to experience her whole new life. The Duke seemed nice. You know, he was telling her a little bit about the history of the castle. They had a bunch of his local people out there celebrating, happy to meet their new Duchess. It's looking good until we get inside the house and we see that they're taking a tour with Lady Sarah, Hector's sister. And she's completely dismissive, the same way she was in New York, but now she's on 10 because she's back on her home soil. And they are dismissive of Gladys. She's walking behind them as they're talking to each other as if she's not there, taking shots at her being from New York, talking about, our home is built in the 1600s and you guys in New York like to build new things and blah, blah, blah. Essentially just taking shots at her and making her feel uncomfortable. And we knew that about Sarah, but my problem is Hector says nothing. Now we realize who wears the pants in this relationship and that she's running things in the house and that Hector's just along for the ride. And we don't believe that he is ever going to stand up to his sister and make this a comfortable situation for Gladys. We were hopeful at the end of last season that maybe this could turn into some kind of a love relationship and maybe it wouldn't be so bad, her being in England. But it is that bad. At least it is for now.
Is that in your hair? Why? My maid suggested them and I like the idea. You don't seem to understand. This isn't New York. I'm afraid your maid is not up to the task if she thought diamond stars were appropriate.
I like them. I think they're pretty.
Really, Hector, this is way over your head.
And that's the first of many times that Hector is going to allow his sister to take charge, disrespect his wife, who's the new lady of the household, and put him in his place. So we have a new villain. We have unlocked a new villain, and it is Lady Sarah. But we got something for her later because Bertha is going to cross the pond and she's going to handle her. So we see a couple of these instances where she pulls rank over Gladys and disrespects her. They have a lunch and she makes fun of her and Gladys's lack of understanding of English customs. And again, Hector does nothing. The final straw for Gladys comes when Lady Sarah unceremoniously fires Gladys's maid. Now, the original plan was that the maid, I can't remember her name right now, was to go to England, stay there for a while, and train the new maid. The plan was for her to go back to the States, but while she's there, she is a source of comfort for Gladys. She's the only thing that she has from home, the only person she can confide in and talk to. Again, remember, this is the late 1890s. Not like you could pick up a phone. There's no other way to communicate. Letters take forever to get back and forth. So this is what she needs. And Lady Sarah fires her, and she uses the excuse that she doesn't know enough about English customs. And of course, Hector still does nothing. He goes to his sister. He's like, well, why can't she keep her maid? Too little, too late. Gladys storms off. I thought for a minute that this was going to be the moment where we would see the inner Bertha in her and she would just, step it up a little bit. But we also do have to remember she is a young girl. She's probably 17, 18 years old. She's not versed in how to clap back and how to stand up for herself because she's probably never had to in her life. And this is a completely foreign environment for her. So what does she do? She writes her father a letter, which is what I was hoping she would do. Get some word back to the States because George is not going to allow this to happen. But before I get to that, we see a conversation between Hector and his sister. And he tells his sister, well, it was your idea that I get an American heiress to come and help save Sidmouth Castle. And she says, well, yeah, I did suggest that, but I never thought you'd have to bring her back home. Now, I don't understand what that means. I don't know the customs back then. If you could marry somebody, get their money and let them stay in the States, or they live apart for most of the year, I suppose that was an option. But it just seems a little odd to me that you would think that she would not live in the home. you know. But Lady Sarah is a weird bird, and we're going to learn a lot more about her in the future. So the letter is off to England, and then we'll have to see what happens on the other side. I'm sorry, the letter is off to America. We'll see what happens on the other side once her parents receive it.
Mr. Fortune, what are you doing here?
Mr. Kirkland. Dr. Kirkland. I'm joining Miss Scott for our interview.
So, first of all, the good doctor said, "It is Dr. Kirkland to you. You're going to put some respect on my name." So I like the way he pumped his chest in that moment in a very nice, professional, above board way. But, so in this scene, we see that Peggy and the Dr. Kirkland, I don't even know this man's first name. They were at a baseball game. They ran into Mr. Fortune. Mr. Fortune told her that, or asked her if she wanted to write an article about Mrs. Harper, about the suffrage movement. And clearly Peggy's interested. This is her thing. And she agrees to do it. The interview is in Philadelphia. She gets her train ticket. She goes to the station, and who's there? Mr. Fortune. He thinks he's slick. He thinks he's going to get on a train with her, but Peggy's not having it, and Dr. Kirkland is not having it. Now, he doesn't know the dynamic. He doesn't know the backstory, right? He doesn't know what's going on, but he's wise enough to surmise that there's something in the milk ain't clean here, and they get into a little bit of a scuffle. Mr. Fortune goes to grab her bag. Oh boy takes it back. He pushes him, and it turns into a little something down to the train station. We see at the end that Peggy is about to tell him that there's more to the story, but he cuts her off. So that's a little bit of a cliffhanger. We're going to find out how she goes about telling him and how that's going to land with him. One thing of note is when they were at the baseball game and Mr. Fortune's daughter came up to them, you could see the pain in Peggy's face. You know, we know that last season she fell in love with him. Come to find out he's married. But seeing him with his child, I think, brought it all back for her. It was a very subtle thing, but there was a look in her face that looked like it was painful for her to watch.
Are you giving this assignment to Miss Scott? She's capable. Why do you need to be there at all? I don't like your tone. It's too bad because I was being polite.
Hey, stop! There's no need for this.
So back on Fifth Avenue, we are in the Russell household, and we see George having a meeting with Clay, and they're talking about this acquisition for the railroad that he's trying to build, and we know that he's having problems because he needs to purchase land. The miners won't sell the land, and Clay is the dude who's supposed to go out and broker these deals, and he's not getting it done, and George is pissed. Clay is telling him, "You're just not offering enough money," and he's reminding him that there's a financial crisis going on and that George is over leveraged. And that's the reason that JP Morgan pulled out. So don't blame me because you can't make this deal. You need to offer them more money. And George is insistent that somehow Clay is falling short and he's not making the deal happen. They get into a little bit of a back and forth, and George essentially fires him.
All I'm saying is your financial position is not good. Why do you think Morgan pulled out?
I don't need counsel to tell me what's not possible. I need someone to help me achieve the impossible. You're fired, Clay.
So then George turns to Larry and asks him to pick up where Clay left off and to negotiate this deal. So he sends Larry to Arizona to negotiate on his behalf because he can't leave New York right now because the markets are unsteady and he needs to be around so that he instills confidence in his partners and employees. Larry negotiates a little bit with him, what's this in for me? I'm not sure what the point of this scene was other than to show that Larry is savvy and he's a negotiator and he's shrewd, just like his father. And more on Larry later because we find out that he finally proposes to Marian and that they are engaged. But so George is in a situation now. Several times they've alluded to his financial situation. And the markets, they say that they're in a recession, the markets are unsteady, and he's running out of money. We touched on this a little bit before when he was negotiating with the Duke about Gladys's dowry. And we still never really got an answer to where that money came from. Because if you'll remember, he reallocated the money that he had for her dowry when he thought that the deal had fallen through to this venture. So he obviously paid the dowry. So there's some money missing here. And now that JP Morgan is pulled out, there's a lot of, uncertainty with his financials. And he turns to Bertha and he says, you know, we need to buy stocks in the Illinois Railroad, line. And apparently they have a colleague, Alfred Merrill. Oh, I'm sorry. Is it Merrick? I don't know if it's Merrick or Merrill. But anyway, there is somebody who has stock in the train that George needs. And he has asked him before and he's been unsuccessful. So he turns to Bertha. We know that Bertha is charismatic and persuasive. He says, you know what, can you bring him to dinner, work your charms on him, and let's see if I can get a deal this way. Unfortunately, his whole plan goes awry.
George was away for it.
That's right. I remember you were there without him.
I couldn't miss it.
Many women will not go out to an event like that without a husband.
Well, there aren't many women like my wife.
So what we see here are a couple of things. Number one, it looks like Bertha and Mr. Merrick are blatantly flirting with each other in front of George. George sees it. George does not like it, but of course he maintains his composure. And I'm wondering, like, is there something there? You know, even when she greeted him at the front door, when she was coming down the steps and he was looking at her, up at her, and saying that she was a lovely sight. I mean, I get that Bertha's a flirt. You know, most manipulative people have a way about them where they use what they have in order to get what they want. And that's one of Bertha's strengths. And it served her up until this point. We see her do it with George. You know, that's essentially how she got her way with him about the Gladys situation. She uses her feminine wiles and her all of that stuff to serve her purposes. But this dinner right here was very cringy. She was doing too much, and Alfred, because he understood what was going on, he knew that the reason he was invited to dinner is because George wanted something from him. He had no intention of ever giving it to him, but he played the game either so he could flirt with Bertha, he could play in George's face. I don't know what his intention was. You know, maybe he just wanted to dangle that carrot in front of him, knowing what the answer ultimately was going to be. But this was a moment where I believe what George has been seeing in Bertha has really crystallized. And this is a fracture in their relationship, and there's more to come. Something else that I observed in this scene is Gladys's disregard, Bertha's disregard for Gladys's well-being. When Alfred asks how their daughter, the Duchess, is doing, you can see the pride swell up in Bertha that she's able to call her daughter a Duchess, but there's no concern for how she's even doing. And George calls it out. He says, you know, we haven't heard from her. And Bertha's like, oh, she's doing fine. If this just reinforces how much she just truly doesn't care. It's all about the pomp and circumstance, and her daughter's well-being is really at the bottom of her list of priorities. So the men adjourn to the billiard room, and what we expect happens. Mr. Merrick has no intention of selling him his shares. You know, George tries to negotiate a deal, but it was never going to happen. Like I said, that man just came over there to play in George's face and to flirt with his wife. But this scene was necessary for us to see how Bertha and George's relationship is starting to disintegrate based on her behavior. Well, at least there's one happy moment for George in this episode. He learns that Larry has proposed to Marian, and he feels good about it because he likes Marian and he wants his son to be happy. And unlike the situation with Gladys, he is not going to allow Bertha to stand in the way. I don't know that it's going to be a real issue because Larry is his own man. He's older. He's going to do what he wants to do. So if he wants to marry Marian, he's going to marry her. And there's nothing Bertha can do about it, especially now that George is involved. While George is happy about it, of course, Bertha has her issues. Agnes doesn't feel so great about this. And it's not because she doesn't like Larry. I believe that she believes he's a fine young man. She just doesn't like Bertha. She's still on that old money, new money thing. And she doesn't want to have to consider this woman part of her family.
Really? We plan to marry.
Oh, congratulations. Oh, we couldn't be happier, could we, Agnes?
Not possibly.
Oh, it's wonderful news.
So Larry is being sent to Arizona for about a month to go and negotiate that deal for his father. But before he leaves, he proposes to Marian. They tell Agnes and Ada. He tells his father and Bertha. And that evening, he decides he's going to go out to a house of ill repute called the Haymarket. And it's one of those places, they've got gambling, they got prostitutes, they got female boxing, they have men in drag, it's a whole thing. He tells Marian that he's going to celebrate, he said he's going to Delmonico's to celebrate his ex-roommate's wedding or something to that effect. Meanwhile, he's going to this place, and obviously he can't tell Marian about it. And he brings Jack with him. So, you know, Jack has made his money now. Now he's rich. Not everybody knows. But the news gets out slowly but surely, and that's a whole different story. But anyway, he brings Jack. Jack is in there all wide-eyed and just, you know, this is all beyond his comprehension. He's never been at a place like that. And Larry's introducing him to this life now that he has money. But while Larry is there, he sees Maud beaten, and she's the one who scammed Oscar out of his money last season. She's there, looks like she's a lady of service. He confronts her. She pretends that she doesn't recognize the name, but he knows it's her. The next time he sees Oscar, he tells Oscar. Then we see a scene where Oscar's talking to his friend, I believe his name is John Adams, and he tells him that somebody saw her. He knows where she is. And Oscar, and John tells him to let it go. He's like, you know, if that's where she is, that she's gotten her karma, let it be. You're not going to get your money back. Just let it ride. And Oscar is like, nah, I got to handle this. And this is a scene was a little bit weird for me because John's reaction was weird to me. The fact that he was so quick to tell him to let it go. And even when he said to him, oh, I didn't expect that she would be there, or something to that effect. It almost sounded like he knew where she was, or he knew what her next move was, and he was actually genuinely surprised to hear that that's where it was. Perhaps she lost the money, perhaps she herself got scammed, and now she's back doing work, doing what they call sex work these days. And he seemed a little bit surprised by that. I'm suspecting that he had something to do with this. And then you would ask the question, well, isn't he the one who bailed Oscar out? He is, but maybe he's playing the long game. Perhaps he worked with Maud to fraud Oscar out of his money so that he could come back and save the day. And now Oscar owes him money. I don't know. I'm totally speculating here. I have no idea where this story is going, but I do know that John Adams' reaction was odd to me. Something about it was weird. The fact that he did not want Oscar to confront her tells me that he's somehow involved in this, but you know, it's yet to be seen.
Mrs. Vane, I wasn't sure you'd come.
I accepted the invitations.
Well, you might not want to stay.
So let's go on up to Newport, Rhode Island and see what's going on with them. Mrs. Fish is hosting the first party of the season, and we see that Marian and Aurora are planning to go to the party together. Aurora is giving her an update on where she's at with her divorce from Charles. It sounds like she has accepted it, and they've already spoken to an attorney. The attorney told her that she's going to get the homes. So she's going to come out all right financially, but socially, she's in the tank. And she even said it, she said it well. She said she gets the houses and she gets some money, but he gets their social circle, which is unfortunate. I'm glad to see that she's agreeing to go out and is, you know, getting out in the public despite what happened. Obviously, she's in Newport, and that seems to be a little bit more amenable to her situation. The people there are kinder to her than they would be in the city. And she is grateful that Mrs. Fish extended the invitation. And she's under the belief that Mrs. Astor is not going to be there, because Mrs. Astor is the one who has a serious problem with this. You know, we know that she sets the tone for society, what's acceptable and what's not. And at that time, divorced women were shunned from society, and Mrs. Astor is at the helm of this. And unfortunately for Aurora, and unbeknownst to Mrs. Fish, Mrs. Astor shows up. And as soon as she comes in, Mrs. Fish finds herself in a situation and it's awkward. And she tells her, she's like, hey, I know I invited you, but you might want to leave. This is an awkward situation right here. And I have to give it to Bertha. Bertha steps in and she embraces Aurora. She speaks to her. She tells her that she looks well. And when the confrontation begins, She's like, you don't have to leave. And if you leave, I'm going to leave with you. For somebody who's such a social climber and who's still trying to solidify their role in society, I was actually surprised to hear Bertha take that stance. I didn't think that she would be so bold as to kick her out, but I thought she might remain neutral. And the fact that she stood up for her was admirable. However, Aurora is uncomfortable. They are treating her like she's some type of social pariah. She goes to sit down, women get up, they move away from her. You can see people staring at her, and she decides that she's going to leave, and Marian leaves with her. So Mrs. Astor again gets her way, and Aurora is cast out of the party. But I will say this. I didn't know that any of these women had the moxie to speak up to Mrs. Astor, but Mrs. Fish does. I was truly impressed the way that she checked her. She told her that you can't ostracize her from society given what's going on with your daughter. You remember last week we learned that there was a scandal going on, the daughter, something with her husband and cheating on her husband, blah, 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 blah. Now, she's not divorced, but it looks like she's heading in that direction. So it's like the audacity of Mrs. Astor to sit here and try to shame Aurora into hiding when your daughter has marital issues. And while it's not a divorce, who knows that it won't be a divorce at some point. And to Bertha's point, it seems like she's doing this to Aurora in order to distract from all of the scuttlebutt that's going on around her daughter. But I love the way that Mrs. Fish told her, if you do this to her, you're going to have to do it to your daughter too. And I don't think you're prepared for that.
You're digging your own grave if you think you can bury Aurora Fane when Charlotte is headed for the divorce courts. You have one question to answer. Are you willing to exile your own daughter from society? If not, you cannot exile Mrs. Fane.
So we conclude this episode with George and Bertha, and this was so good. There were so many powerful scenes in this episode between the two of them. The dinner party, well, I shouldn't say it was a party, the dinner that they had with Mr. Merrick, and how she was blatantly flirting with him in front of George. George called her on it later. He told her that he felt like a cuckold at his own dinner table. And she pushed back and said, hey, you asked me to do this. I was only doing what you asked me to do. And it's not my fault that you can't close a deal. At that moment, he was livid. He stormed off. A little bit of time passes and she overhears him arguing in the office with one of his business partners. She asks him what's wrong, and he finally admits to her that there's some financial issues. The market is a wreck, and he's having some concerns, or he's having some challenges. And she asks him how he can help. She asks him how she can help. And he says, can you just find out how our daughter is doing? This is a sticking point with him. And Bertha still doesn't seem to get it. She keeps dismissing this whole idea of Gladys as if, oh, she's all right or she'll be better later. I don't think she understands how pissed George is about this. And this is all compounded with the financial struggles that he's having. Not to mention how she embarrassed him at that dinner.
George, what is happening?
Everything's at stake. I've no time to soothe your guilt or calm your fears. I must get back to work.
I don't know about y'all, but I don't feel no kind of sympathy for Bertha. After what she did to Gladys last week and all the other manipulative things that she's done, I don't have any sympathy for her. And the one thing that she cares about, not even her kids, the one thing she cares about is George. And she's starting to lose that. The signs were there, and she just kept pushing back, sounding off, popping off at the mouth. And now this man is at his limit. And it's only to this point. It had to get to this point for her to actually realize it.
Gladys is miserable. I should never have allowed you to bully her like
What
that.
are you talking about?
Read it.
This can be fixed and I'll see to it. I'll go to England.
I don't know if I'm angry with you or myself. You made me weak, and I find that hard to forgive.
I can fix this, believe me.
That's the problem. I don't think I do believe you anymore.
I'll make everything right.
Do what you want. Don't expect me to be here when you get back.
Bertha is so used to getting her way and so used to being conniving and it working out for her in the end. She's at a loss. She's at a complete loss. I've never even seen that look on her face before. I don't know what George means by I won't be here when you get back, but it's not looking good for their relationship. And I have no sympathy for her at this point. So it does look like she's going to go to England next week or for the next episode and hopefully save the day over there. Now, as much negative stuff as I did say about Bertha just now, one thing I will say is she is the right one for the job when it comes to putting Lady Sarah in her place. So she's going to go over there and she's going to get the whole household together. She'll probably remind the Duke that we're the one with the money, we're the one with the resources, and if it wasn't for us, your castle would just crumble to ashes. So you better act right, put your sister in check, and respect my daughter. I'm assuming that that's what's going to happen next week, and I'm here for all of that. But as far as her and George is concerned, the writing is on the wall, and she brought all of this on herself. But that's it for this episode. It was a lot to cover, and trying to think about what else am I predicting for next week. It seems like Marian is going to be upset with Larry. She's going to learn that he was at that place. You know, from what we saw, he didn't do anything wrong. It's not like he was hooking up with any prostitutes or anything. Maybe she just doesn't like the idea of him being there, or the idea that he lied to her and said he was going someplace else. I'm not sure. But waiting to see how that plans out. Do y'all think that they're actually going to get married? Because something about him going away for 30 days seems a little ominous, as if something bad is going to happen to him. You know, it's like they have the proposal, they're all excited about the engagement, and then he goes out of town. So I'm wondering if something's going to happen while he's away that's going to make this marriage not happen. And we know Marian has a poor track record. But that's it for now. I'm going to stop. Let me know what you think about this episode. What are your predictions for next week? And we will be back next week to talk about episode 6. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe.